people. Mine is closer to my heart. The shuttle had a ham radio on board on my second mission, which was put in the back window of the shuttle, and you could talk to the ground, not through the NASA communication system that was always busy and tied up, but to speak with people on the ground. And schools could propose to have their school talk to astronauts. And my son's school applied, and strangely enough, they were granted audience with our flight. And I helped my son. They all had to pose questions to the astronauts. And I practiced with my son, and he seemed very anxious about it, and I asked him if he was afraid that he was going to mess up. And he said no, he was mostly afraid that if I went to answer him, I was going to say something mushy to him. And that he'd be embarrassed in front of his classmates. So I promised that I wouldn't, and answered his question and all of the questions from his school. We were beginning to go out of contact. I thanked the school for their excellent questions and said I'd come visit them after the flight. And we went out of contact, and I thought we were not speaking to the ground anymore. And a little voice came out of the black void of space that said, "I love you, Mom. Have a safe trip home."
Aww.
So for some of us, there are very personal things that we remember from our space flights that's kind of special for us in a very personal sort of way. And as for accomplishments, John, I think you probably played a role. On my third flight, I was the payload commander, which sort of meant that I was kind of the point person for the science work that was done on the flight. We had a very ambitious flight with probably more experiments. Shannon was on that flight. We had done tremendous amounts of training. We have a very, very busy schedule. We just hoped that all the equipment would work well, and I think when we were able to get all of the information that we had planned to do on the crew members, and for one of the first times we were able to do studies on men and women on my two space lab missions, comparing men and women, because we did the studies, same studies on both sexes. So for me, the accomplishment was to bring back all of that information that I'd hoped to study as a child, and to be able to prove once and for all that men and women pretty much adapt to space the same way.
Well, as I think back over the flights that I was on, what I remember the most, I mean, I was able to do a lot of very interesting science things with launch satellites, et cetera, et cetera. But what I remember the most is I think about it, what I get the most satisfaction from are the interactions that I had with various crew members on the various flights. And like, you know, just for instance, one night when I was on the flight that launched Galileo, that was the probe that went to Jupiter, and I happened to be on board with Ellen Baker. It was her first flight. And so, you know how it is, we finished for the day, and we were just sort of having a good time. And then Mike McCulley, the pilot, came by, and you know, things just progressed from there. And Ellen and I, we laughed and we laughed and we laughed. And Mike, from then on, he would ask, "What is so funny?" And we said, "Well, you had to have been there to really, you couldn't really describe it." But we just had a great time. But, and this isn't particularly memorable, profound accomplishment or whatever. When Ray was talking about her little boy, I can remember when I came home from my first flight, and we flew from the Cape, and we were at Ellington, and then the families came out to meet us, etc. And my little boy, who was, I think, about in the 5th grade or so, he ran up to me and he hugged me, and it was very pretty. I thought, oh, he's going to make some grand statement. His very first words were, "Mom, what are you going to cook for supper tonight?"
Your mom's cooking.
No, I don't think I can top that. No, my daughter wasn't really speaking when I flew into space. Talking about memories is always a hard one because there's so many. You know, just what it was like to go out to the pad that morning and thinking that you're actually really going to go into space. It's kind of like, you know, waiting for Christmas when you're a little child and finally Christmas is coming. and that day is there, and that whole surreal experience of going out to the Cape and then launching into space. I don't want to take all the time for questions, but that's just an amazing experience. But the few things that come back to mind that really stand out in my mind is just how amazingly beautiful this planet is, and how one day I was, every night when we said goodnight to Mission Control, we would all take about an hour or so just to look out the window before we went to sleep. And I remember looking out, we launched on a full moon, and I was looking out and I thought there were clouds below us, and I looked over at our world map and I realized, no, we were over the Himalayas. And just around that time I was listening to the tape that my husband had made for me, and all of a sudden my daughter's voice, Kristen, came up. She was only 14 months, and she goes, "I love," which is her way of saying I love you. And just that experience of being on board this highly technical machine and this beautiful view, and hearing her talk was just an amazing experience. And then another one was, we all had music on our Walkmans that we carried at the time. I know.
I remember.
God, I wish we had had iPhones, believe me. But my commander said to come over, "Hey, Anna, listen to this." And he had recorded, when you see the Southern Cross for the first time. And we were just crossing the equator, looking out the window and looking at the Southern Cross for the first time for me. So there's just so many amazing things. And as Shannon said, the interactions with your crew and those kinds of things were just the things that really, really stick out. The teamwork with our people on the ground. I see some of our flight directors and our people that we worked with here. Just that whole sense of teamwork was amazing. For our particular mission, when you talked about what you're proud of, there were 2 satellites that their engine that was supposed to take them to a higher orbit failed in February of the year we launched in '84. And I remember I was asked to be on the Today Show because it was also the first flight of the Manned Maneuvering Unit. And so I was there commenting on it, and they asked if they thought NASA would try to go get these 2 satellites, and I said, I don't think so. They weren't designed to be retrieved, and they're very fragile, and I said, no, I didn't think so. Well, that was in February of '84, and in November of '84, I got to eat those words, and those are the best words I ever ate in my life. Because it was a very exciting mission to be a part of, and I wouldn't trade that experience of being involved with that and my crewmates for anything in the world. It was just an amazing experience, and I'm incredibly grateful to have been selected and to have this incredible honor to share with my fellow other women astronauts. And the other thing I would just mention real fast is I had the incredible privilege of working with pretty much every female astronaut other than the class that was selected. And it's a really amazing group of women, and I'm just so proud of all of them.